Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and even Indiana football are on a roll right now. All have huge expectations for 2025. But I'm going to tell you why it'd be a huge mistake to sleep on Michigan in 2025. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below. Thank you very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com and get started. All right, don't overlook Michigan in the fall. Plus, we'll talk some defensive coordinator talk here. And apparently Ohio State had no chance of keeping Jim Knowles. We'll tell you the behind-the-scenes story there. And our power rankings for basketball in the middle of the week. But Big Ten football continues to pat itself on the back, right? Back-to-back national championships, placing 3 teams in the top 25 from the Associated Press and 4 teams in the top 10. It was a great year. One program slipped a bit this year. They've been lurking in the shadows away from the headlines. The Michigan Wolverines. Let's not forget that the Big Ten's return to power started with Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines' 3 straight trips to the 4-team playoffs, capped off by an undefeated national championship season in 2023. Now, it was a noisy 15-0, multiple Jim Harbaugh suspensions, Burgergate, Spygate, Connor Stallions. Eventually, Jim Harbaugh's annual flirting with NFL coaching jobs that got him to go to the Chargers at the end. There was never a dull moment in Ann Arbor that particular year. And by the way, there was some pretty good football along the way while they were going through all that noise. Now, let's fast forward. 2024, Jim Harbaugh gone, and along with a lot of talent like J.J. McCarthy, Sherrone Moore, who had done a great job jumping in for Coach Harbaugh each time he landed a suspension. He's now the man in charge of the program. And, of course, going into the season this past fall, there were some whispers that Michigan might be okay. It might be okay, better than expected, maybe. Maybe. There was still a lot of NFL caliber talent on that depth chart, that roster. There was. The problem was that they failed to enter the season with a bona fide quarterback to lead the team. And granted, filling J.J. McCarthy's shoes would be a tough matter, no matter who lined up behind center. But Davis Warren turned the ball over too much. Alex Orji couldn't throw the ball, period. Jack Tuttle was always hurt, and then he retired in the middle of the season. You know, eking out 7 wins during that regular season was no small feat, but they did get there. They won the 8th game in the bowl game. But in the end, it was a subpar season. But it was salvaged by a couple of exciting events. Of course, they got the shocking upset of their arch rival, Ohio State. Eventual national champion, Ohio State, I might add. By the way, the Buckeyes, remember, were favored by 3 touchdowns in that game. And then they lost to the Wolverines. And then there was the whole flag planting thing. You remember the deal. And then the Wolverines went on to beat Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And it was program's 2nd win over Alabama in 365 days. So while the Ohio State Buckeyes are enjoying their championship trophy and the Oregon Ducks are ironing their new Big Ten championship banner, Penn State is trying to put the final pieces together to take that next step into the championship. Michigan has been quietly retooling. Now, their first and biggest problem was quarterback. That's been solved. In the 11th hour, they snatched the number 1 recruit in America, Bryce Underwood, quarterback. Not the best quarterback in the country, he was, but the best recruit in the country. Snagged him from LSU. Now, the $12 million name, image, and likeness from the Oracle family certainly helped. Nothing wrong with that. Plus, the kid's from Michigan. So He's ready to go. And guiding this freshman is going to be a new offensive coordinator this year for Michigan, Chip Lindsay. Chip Lindsay comes in. Recently, he had been coaching under Mac Brown at North Carolina. That included coaching Drake May, who seems to be settling in as a legitimate NFL quarterback with the Patriots. His offenses averaged at least 30 points per game in 9 of his 12 seasons in coaching and running offenses. And you may recall at North Carolina, their problem wasn't scoring points. They scored points. Their defense was horrible. They gave up like 45 points a game, it seems like, every single week. Otherwise, they would have they've done a lot better because their offense was pretty potent. So we got quarterback solved at Michigan. All right. Now let's talk about the running game, because Michigan always has a running game. That's just part of the deal. That's part of their DNA. And over the past 2 years, the Wolverines have seen guys like Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings come and go. But even the most cautious Michigan fan had to like what they saw in the ReliaQuest Bowl with running back Jordan Marshall. Against Alabama, he ran for 100 yards, and he was the bowl game's MVP. Not bad. Next man up. The Wolverines also landed a transfer from Alabama, running back Justice Hayes. I guess he liked what he saw from the other sideline when Michigan was busy beating Alabama. I'd like to see personally how wide receiver Samaj Morgan does with a more accurate quarterback getting him the ball. I think he could potentially have a bit of a breakout year. And the Wolverines have a couple of interesting tight ends to replace Colston Loveland in Marlon Klein and Hogan Hansen. So they have talent coming up. Now, on defense, major talent needs to be replaced here. Major. Just like I said, Michigan likes to hang its head on a running game. It also likes to hang its head on having a defense. Defense and running game. That's Michigan football. They got to replace Kenneth Grant. They got to replace Mason Graham. They got to replace Josiah Stewart. They got to replace Will Johnson, all headed to the NFL. But Michigan has always had a next man up level mentality and depth at positions. And in fact, there are guys coming up on the front four. They got some depth there. Look for 6'5" edge rusher Dominic Nichols to anchor the defensive line. He was second on the team with 5.5 sacks this year, and he wasn't even a starter. So he's coming back. You got safety Brandon Hillman. It's his chance to shine. But he's going to have some help because some good news in the last week. Rod Moore is coming back. He missed all last season with an injury, but he's coming back. This is an NFL caliber guy. So, and he's a guy that played a key role back in the championship year. So putting it all together, of course, will be defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who is also coming back. He interviewed for a handful of NFL coordinator jobs. Either didn't get him or didn't like what he saw. He's coming back. And remember, 2024 defensively started out slowly as that was his first year. But by the end of the season, Michigan's defense was as good as anybody. They were shutting people down. He had that defense dialed in. So he's coming back. Everybody's used to his system. So that leads me to this question. How high is the ceiling for the Michigan Wolverines in 2025? Let's look at their schedule, first of all. It's pretty interesting. I think right off the top, you can just baseline. They can match the 7 wins they got last year. They got some winnable games. New Mexico, Central Michigan, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. They're nowhere near ready to compete yet. Michigan State is up and coming, and their success under Jonathan Smith is going to depend on the growth of quarterback Aiden Childs. And then there's Luke Fickell's Badgers, not really responding as quickly to him. He's now going into year 3 of this program. I'm not sure they're there yet. So right there with those games, those are potential 7 wins for the Michigan Wolverines this year. They've got road games at Oklahoma, Nebraska, and USC. That's the pivotal part of the season. Let's just say they get 2 of the 3. Michigan's at 9 wins right there. Now, that leaves 2 more games we haven't talked about yet. They're home games, Washington and Ohio State. If you split those 2 games, you're looking at 10 wins. 10 wins get you in the playoffs out of the Big Ten. You win them both, and you're going to be in the Big Ten championship game, taking on whomever. Plus make the playoffs. It's right there. It all depends on how quickly Underwood can develop at quarterback. Now remember, he's not only is a freshman, he's a young freshman. Like he's like 17, and like it may not happen in the first year. It may take all year to get comfortable. He may not even start every game. I don't know this yet. We'll find out. I'm really looking forward to watching spring football and watching him play there. But if things go the right way for Michigan and he does develop quickly and gets comfortable, sky could be the limit for this Michigan football team. Don't sleep on the Michigan Wolverines this fall. That's what I'm saying. Let's hear it from Michigan fans with comments here on YouTube. Are we a little too optimistic here? Or are we ready to go? Love your thoughts and comments on that. Hey, be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode as soon as it's available each and every day. And then if you don't mind, share, like, and follow. That really helps us out, helps you out. We're all on the same page there. Don't forget to check out our website, talkbig10.com as well. That's with the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there, and there are links for you to buy some Michigan merchandise, shirts, T-shirts, hats, or your favorite Big Ten team. They're all there, right there on the website, talkbig10.com. All right, interesting story throughout this week that we've talked about here, and it got a lot of people's attention. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles leaving Ohio State, going to Penn State. Apparently really wanted to leave Ohio State and really wanted to go to Penn State. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. You got to check this out if you haven't yet. You've been hearing us talk about it all season long. Whether you're predicting the first touchdown of the game, who's going to be the MVP, the coin toss, heads or tails, the color, the Gatorade, when they dump it on the coach, all that is right there. And with live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Live betting. It's happening. Check it out. Stay involved no matter what's going on the field. The app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, icing on the cake for you. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com and get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It's free. Thank you very much. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com as well. Former Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles is settling in at Penn State now, where they just gave him a 3-year contract for $3.1 million a year to run the Nittany Lions defense, highest paid coordinator in the country, as they try to take that next step. They got to the semifinals, lost to Notre Dame by 3 points. Otherwise, they would have been in the championship. We would have had all Big Ten championship. That would have been cool. That's how close Penn State is right now. Knowles can help them get over the hump. He just held his first team meeting with his new players. Now, he's a Philly native, and he told his coaches and players, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. I know Ohio State tried to pay him a little bit of money and try and keep him, but this is where he wanted to go. This is where he was going. He remembered watching Penn State highlights as a kid. He dreamed of playing there someday. He was never good enough to make it as a player, but all the work and success of his career allowed him to get to the point now where he could just pick up and go wherever he wanted to. And this is where he wants to go. This is where he wants to be. Apparently, this is the place he's always wanted to be. He's always wanted to be at Happy Valley. He's 59 years old. He's been coaching for 37 years. It just seems he's always wanted to land at Penn State one way or the other. Ryan Day called him the best defensive coordinator in college football. That's why I think they did try to up the ante a little bit and try and keep him, but it got to over $3 million a year. It's a lot of money. And I think Penn State football coach James Franklin would agree he's the best defensive coordinator in college football. And the Buckeyes, while Knowles was the defensive coordinator, they've held Penn State to just one touchdown offensively in the last two games they played against each other. Ohio State's defense has just shut down Penn State's offense. That got Penn State's attention. So why not get the guy in charge of it and have him working for you? Because they had to replace Tom Allen anyway. Penn State's hiring of Knowles off of one of their rivals' staffs. It completely reset the market with that annual salary of $3 million a year for a coordinator. A lot of coaches, a lot of head coaches make that kind of money at a lot of schools across the country. Not power 4 schools, of course, but elsewhere it does. And the Nittany Lions say they're all in. Plus, they're returning dozens of players from a team that won a record 13 games this year. Again, coming within a field goal beat Notre Dame. They're ready to go. They think they're on the doorstep, and they're going to punch through it. And since Penn State and Knowles reset the coordinator market, I want to talk about that for a minute because it's affecting other people as he's all good to go at Happy Valley. How about USC's D'Anton Lynn, their defensive coordinator? Now, he signed an extension with USC a week earlier. Should have waited one more week. He's only getting $2 million a year. Now, he was involved in this too. It was pretty good. And so his story is he was at UCLA a couple of years ago, and actually they had a really good defense. Chip Kelly's last year out there. He was Chip Kelly's defense coordinator. And then USC poached him away because Lincoln Riley was pretty desperate to turn some defense around and get some improvement. And he finally fired his good friend and longtime defense coordinator, Alex Grinch, who came over with him from Oklahoma. And then they got Lynn to move across town and take over the USC defense, and it worked. Now, despite USC's disappointing season, they finished 7-6. The defense was much improved. Couldn't really blame the defense too much. The Trojans gave up 10.3 points per game less than they did the previous year in 2023. Gave up 55 fewer yards per game. And they're all happy. They wanted to keep him. But there was a little bit of a bidding war, a little bit, because Penn State was also talking to him before they were talking to Jim Knowles. And remember, Lynn used to play for Penn State. That's his alma mater. I think he was interested in that. So he played corner back in the day. But no homecoming in the works for him. And Penn State's interest went elsewhere to Jim Knowles. But at the time, talking to him, that jacked up his price with USC. Because I'll tell you what, USC could not afford to lose him. Go through 3 coordinators in 2 years. They couldn't have done it. Either way, Lynn was going to get paid. But that market for defensive coordinator, man, that's a good spot to be in these days. All right, one other note as we're getting ready for the Senior Bowl. Michigan running back Kalel Mullings, talking about Michigan earlier. He's not in Mobile, Alabama right now. He's nursing a minor injury. He's expected to be ready for the NFL Scouting Combine February 7th through March 2nd in Indianapolis. He's currently projected as a day 3 draft pick. He is one of 4 Wolverines that accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. Mullings had a great season last season. And in fact, he kind of came on a little bit as a surprise and stole some of Donovan Edwards' thunder, rushed for 948 yards and 12 touchdowns, splitting time. And now remember, he was seen after the Ohio State game in the post-game interviews wearing a boot on his left foot. So he messed that up. And he did not play in their win over Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl. But he says he should be good to go. Speaking of Edwards, he did not play in the Ohio State game and then opted out of the bowl game, but he will play in the Senior Bowl. Edge Josiah Stewart and long snapper William Wagner are all going to be there in Mobile, Alabama, to play in that game. Meanwhile, some hoops to tell you about. Here we are in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. Number 17, Wisconsin at Maryland tonight, 7 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. For men's, also Rutgers at Northwestern at 9 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. And women, number 14, Maryland is at Penn State. That's at 6 p.m. on the Big Ten Network Plus. And Michigan at Wisconsin, the ladies playing at 7:30 on Big Ten Plus as well. Speaking of hoops, middle of the week, we always do power rankings. Football's over. Let's take a look at the Big Ten men's power rankings as we see it. You can agree or disagree. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right. I want to take a look at our power rankings for men's basketball. I'm going to put this on full screen. And if you're on audio only, we'll describe it in detail what we got going on here so you don't feel like you're missing anything. So here we go. Listen, this is clear cut as we're at this point, winding down January, getting ready to get into February. March Madness is next. Michigan State, Tom Izzo, Michigan State Wolverine, or Michigan State Spartans. Oops, sorry about that. Winners of 12 straight, 15-16. And they've got, recent wins over Oregon, Illinois, Purdue. They're on a roll. Michigan coming up. The Purdue Boilermakers, they had a loss to Ohio State. That was a little surprising. They won versus Michigan. They are 8-1 in their last 9. They got a big game they look forward to against Indiana coming up, and Indiana's really struggling. But Purdue at number 2, Michigan State number 1, Purdue 2, Wisconsin at number 3. The Ken Palm rankings, which people like to look at, has them 14th in the country. Even though they lost at UCLA by 2, they did beat Nebraska by 28 right after that. So they kept it rolling. Illinois can't figure out. They're at number 4. They're good. They're going to make the March Madness tournament, but they're a little up and down. They're like 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a deal. Lost to Maryland. They had a win against Northwestern. Wasn't that a 21-point loss to Maryland? I think just up and down. Speaking of Maryland, technically I should have Maryland ahead of Illinois after that, but I don't. They had to climb up to here to number 5. They've won 5 of 6. Maybe the next one I'll have them above Illinois. That might make more sense. Win against Illinois, win against Indiana. Ken Palm has them at 21. They're on the rise. I may verbally just make Maryland number 4 and Illinois 5. I may just verbally swap them out, even though I'm looking at my graphic here. Oregon at number 6 with a win over Washington, but they lost to Minnesota. We're going to talk about Minnesota in a minute. They've had some very key wins lately. Just getting out of the basement of our Big Ten power rankings. I got Michigan at number 7. They're trickling down a little bit here. They lost to Purdue on Friday, got blown out, lost to Minnesota. Minnesota's beating everybody now. UCLA at number 8. They had a win against Wisconsin, win against Washington. They won 3 straight after 4 straight conference losses. Remember that was when Mick Cronin told everybody in the media this team was not very tough. They're playing better since then. They didn't like to be embarrassed. I got the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 9. They beat Purdue. That was good. Ken Palm's got them at 30th. I think Ohio State's a team to watch now. They feel like they're getting it together despite losing 4 or 5. That doesn't make sense, does it? But they do seem to be getting a little better right now. Who knows? Maybe they get hot. Number 10, I got Northwestern. They had a win against Indiana, lost to Illinois. They're probably going to be a bubble team when it comes to the selection committee for the NCAA tournament. All right, here's the best of the rest. I've got USC at number 11. Had a win over Nebraska. They've won 3 out of 4. They beat Illinois. What's going on there? USC's starting to figure it out. Indiana is not figuring out. They keep falling. They're 12th. They've lost 4 of 5. Lost to Northwestern and Maryland recently. A lot of trouble there. At 13, I've got the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Like I said, red hot. They had a stretch of 3 straight wins and 2 of them were ranked. They beat ranked Michigan. They beat Iowa. They beat ranked Oregon. Explain that to me. At 14, the Iowa Hawkeyes. They lost to red hot Minnesota. So I got Minnesota ahead of them. They beat Penn State. Iowa also 0-6 in quad 1 games. That's not going to be good later on. Penn State at 15. Win against Rutgers, a loss to Iowa. They did snap a bit of a skid, a 4-game skid, I think it was. So that's where they are. Maybe they can get it turned around. Rutgers at number 16. Lost to Penn State, lost to Michigan State. Dylan Harper was out, and he's back. They got Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I still think this team can make a little bit of noise. I got Nebraska falling down to number 17 now. They lost to USC, lost to number 17 Wisconsin. I think they've lost 6 in a row now. Lost to Rutgers. And Washington is at the bottom. They also have lost 6 in a row. 5 of those 6 were ranked teams, though. I'll cut them a little bit of slack, but they're down here in the basement for now. Those are our midweek power rankings. You can agree or disagree. Always love to hear from you guys on this kind of stuff. Maybe I rank somebody too high, too low. Let me know. Maybe we'll do something about it on next Wednesday's podcast. All right. Tomorrow, we're going to look into the Buckeyes' finances with their athletic department. Some interesting questions there. And they're spending money, right? With the roster and nil money, and we got revenue share coming. But there's some questions we got to ask and get some answers to. I'll explain that in more detail tomorrow. In the meantime, there's many ways for you to interact with me on Twitter at TalkBig10, X if you prefer. Our website, talkbig10.com. We'll have our podcast go. Plus, you can buy your favorite school merchandise there. Be sure to subscribe before you go and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I always enjoy our time together. I never take it for granted. Tell your friends about us. Have them join us tomorrow as well. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.